David Shmuel ben Yom Tov. David Shmuel ben Yom Tov. Please make a bracha. And if you're listening on the phone, make a bracha. They say that there was this farmer who hired a top-notch Rebbe. Hired a top-notch Rebbe in order to get the Rebbe to get his kid to know Ivr, that is the farmer's son. And it just wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. He says, "What's your problem?" "I don't know. I think there's certain words he has problems with." So the farmer comes in. He says, "I'm standing here by the lesson." And the kid said, the Rebbe says to the kid, "Nu Tzeirei Aleph." He says, "Eh? Kametz Beis Ba Piri Gimel Gi Segel Dalid De." He goes, "Tzeirei Hey." Kid is mum. I said, "Tzeirei Hey." The farmer picks up a rake. He goes, "The rabbi's asking you something." He goes, "Can you please tell me what's under the hay?" "What is under the hay?" Finally the kid says, "Pa's jigsaw. That's he hits where I hit it, okay? That's where it is." That's where he hit his father's jigsaw, and he told him what's under the hay, and his father was standing there intimidating him, so he didn't want to say what was underneath the hay. Sometimes in our ability to communicate, we send the wrong communications. Sometimes we get the truth out of the kid, but that's not necessarily a minor. You don't always have to have the truth. I want to try to explain that a little bit so we don't get the wrong idea. The Pasuk says, "Ki b'ka Hashem tzur olamim," that Hashem created this world with a hay. Olam haba was created with a yud, says the Gemara in Menachos, and this world was created with a hay. Why was this world created with a hay? Because if you want to bottom out, it is very easy to bottom out. If you want to bottom out, habol l'tamei poischen loy. They open up, that's it. You don't have to go very, very far to fall into the shel tachtis, to fall into the abyss. Habol l'taher, if somebody wants to purify himself. So Messiah, so Hashem B'dafka left the left side of the hay open between the leg of the hay and the roof so you can get in. But obviously it is a lot easier to fall out than it is to crawl in. That's why it says Habol l'tamei, one who wants to defile himself, poischen loy, the bottom of the hay is all open. So Habol l'taher Messiah. So we understand now that perhaps the kid, realizing what this Gemara says, did not want to answer what's underneath the hay, because we don't want to say what's underneath the hay, underneath the Habol l'tamei poischen loy. Now, I thought about this, and this could be total nonsense, but do you ever notice when people want to stop someone without using their name, they say, "Hey!" Right? That's what they say. It's very impersonal. It is very not refined. It's not the word that you should use when you address someone, but it is the word that people use. They go, "Hey!" I remember years ago there was a yid here from Bnei Brak. He was standing in the bank, and he asked me, "How do you talk to someone nicely?" You know. So what's the equivalent of Adoni? So I said, "Sir," I guess. And he walks off, and I see he's standing by a teller, and this teller is like really giving him dirty looks. And he goes, "Sir, why are you not listening to me? Sir." I said, "No. To her you say, 'Ma'am.' Do you understand?" She was not very happy. Like that one, right? Okay. So he said, "You didn't tell me that to a lady, you don't say sir. You didn't ask me that, tell me you were talking to a lady." So he said, "Visa Zokman?" I said, "Ma'am." Goes over to the next one, a young girl, he goes, Mama! I said, "Do me a favor, okay? Just say hello, okay? Just say hello." You know how they goes, "Just a shine? Shine it with these looks." Yeah, is that nice? Yeah, nicer than what you're doing now. Trust me, don't worry about But there's like a natural tendency to say, "Hey," and maybe because that's what this world is. This world is a hey. Habol l'tamei poischen loy, you fall out the bottom. Habol l'taher, if you want to purify yourself, Messiah, so you could help. It's very hard to get in. It's very, very hard to get in. Habol l'taher Messiah. Now, Pashtis from the Gemara, it's mashma. And what is the problem with the leg of the hay? That it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard to get in. That's Alpi Pashtis, what it means. Okay? However, once you are in, you're in. Sefer Time of Devar says that Hashem, so why couldn't Hashem make a bigger opening between the leg of the hay and the top of the hay? So it should be easier to climb in. It says in the Time of Devar, the reason there's a narrow space between the leg of the hay and the top of the hay isn't only so that it's hard to climb in. It's to make sure that when you get in, that the hay holds you in place and you don't fall out easier. And he goes on to explain that as we try to work our way back, and there's no one that doesn't have to work his way back, the Rabbi Shalom creates certain scenarios in our life that braces us in, that cause us to stay in place so we don't fall back. And sometimes we're uncomfortable. Maybe uncomfortable being between the top of the hay and the bottom of the hay. Maybe uncomfortable to say the least. However, Pasuk goes on to, however, the Rabbi Shalom does that to keep us from falling. Braces are also uncomfortable. Well, the Gemara Dash is actually a pasuk. Well, the leitzum hu yalitz v'le'anovim yitin chein. Well, the leitzum, those that mock, Hashem says, you want to mock? I'll let you mock me. I have no problem. I get the last laugh. You don't live forever. That's the bottom of the hay. Ulianovim, for those who are modest, yitin chein, Hashem provides favor. What does that mean? Is the opposite of mocking modesty? And the answer is, who does Hashem give the favor to? Someone who's an onav. Someone who says, Rabbi Shalom, I know my life is in your hands. Please help. So there's a famous kasha. If Tzaddik asks the kasha, others ask the kasha. If you have a shidduch that's almost a shidduch, and then it unravels the last minute, because somebody went over to the mother-in-law and said something not nice about the son-in-law, someone went over to the son-in-law and said, this is going to be some mother-in-law, someone cracked the shidduch. I don't think we've said this story this year yet, so I'll take the liberty of saying it. I heard this from the Talmud Rebbe, that there was a young man someplace in Eretz Yisrael, that he was a good guy, really was a good guy, Erlich guy, didn't do anything wrong. He just wasn't such a natural masmid. And even though, like he said, what did the guy say? I did like 10 years in Koil, and I got, my father-in-law gave me 10 years in Koil, and I got 05 for good behavior. So that was his attitude, not exactly the proper attitude for Limud HaTorah. And, he davened, he was Erlich, he was Shana Shabbos. He was the guy in Koil that opened the window, made sure the window's open, closed the window, make sure the coffee was resupplied, the chairs, he opened up a Gemara, closed the Gemara, opened the Gemara, this Gemara, that Gemara, learned here and there a few minutes. So some people told his mother-in-law about your new son-in-law, and she went full blast. She destroyed him. Every time he came for Shabbos, she said, other sons-in-law, big masmidim, and look who you are, this is what we married, the Schachter did a railroad job on us. And she really did she was very good at affectionately giving over her shower of love and care for her son-in-law. So he went to his Rebbe and he said, I'm going out of my mind. He says, what should I do? So the Rebbe told him, I want you to do, okay? He said, I want you to do. Every night before you go to sleep, I want you to take a Gemara. Okay? And for 15 minutes, I want you to learn. 15 minutes is a long time for me. You can do 15 minutes, okay? And if you can't learn for 15 minutes, sway back and forth in front of the Gemara. Say the Ivra for 15 minutes. But chayk v'layach, no exceptions. I don't care how late you came back from a wedding. I don't care how early you have to get up the next day. I don't care how hot it is. I don't care how cold it is. 15 minutes before you go to sleep, you open a Gemara. So he does it first couple of days. And then he goes to his shver and shviger for Shabbos. I think it says in the Baal Shem Tov, if a person is caught Shabbos in a pirate situation, or it's a big kaparas of Einus, and he's there, goes off to a Sham Zachar, comes back late, he's in his pajamas, gets into bed, the Shabbos clocks turn off all the lights. Apparently, not being very open with money is also one of the great milas over there. And he remembers he didn't do his 15 minutes. He never missed the 15 minutes. So he says, I got to do my 15 minutes before I go to sleep. So he throws on his robe and he looks around. There's no light in the entire house. So he grabs his Gemara, he walks out on the marpeset. Did I say that good? Marpeset? Yeah. He walks out onto the porch, and there's like, in the moonlight, he's like leaning over. And if he leans from a certain angle, like on a 45-degree angle, leaning over the left corner, under the canopy, he can get a hold of the moon a little. And he's trying to extend his hands and hold the Gemara that way. And he's looking at his 15 minutes, and he's going for it. Meanwhile, his shviga wakes up in the middle of the night, and someone's on the porch. That's it. She's thinking terrorist. She's thinking burglar. She's thinking some mad person that's could even be worse. She didn't think it was worse than that. That was her son-in-law. And she picks up a huge club, And she walks out. She can handle herself pretty good here. And she walks out and she's about to take one swing and she goes, "Bah! What?" Her son-in-law is sitting and learning in the moonlight in the middle of the night. Allah Midvav Tzaddik, one of the 36 hidden tzaddikim of the generation. She said, "Everyone come and see, everyone come and see." He went and he hid himself. He hid his greatness. Even we should make fun of him. Of course, I saw through it all the time. But I knew this was his ratzon. You know, he's supposed to do the ratzon of a, Kvayde Shalom, Zeret Tzayner, Tzayner Shalom, Zeret Kvayde. Unbelievable. Everyone comes running, the whole tumult, and she mentions to the other sons-in-law, "I never saw you learning by the moonlight at night." Shviga blop shviga, it goes. So he went back, and he said to the Rabbi, he said, "Rebbe, thank you for your advice." So the Rebbe said, "Why do you think it worked?" He said, "It worked because you didn't do this to impress anybody. You did it because you said, I'm doing the best that I can. And if I do the best that I can, then the Rebbe Hashem puts things into place. Had you done it to impress her, it wouldn't have worked." It's like the other guy that said he wanted to impress his in-laws who lived upstairs. His father-in-law passed away. His mother-in-law was there. She also was a shviger. And she wanted to impress her. So every time he heard her walking in the middle of the night, he said, every time he heard walking in the middle of the night, Tashma, And after many years, the shviger passed away. And he goes to sleep that night. First night he got a good night's sleep. And oh no, he hears the same walking. He goes, "Simonish, the ghost of my shviger coming down." Listen, imagine that, And he goes, "Wait, what's going on?" So he climbs up and he sees that there are cats walking back and forth on the roof. He says, "For 20 years I learned to impress cats." There's a point is that you have to try to be the best person that you can. And if the best person that you can, as Stipler told us or someone, I have no patience to learn. So everyone has patience. Questions for how long? You have patience for 5 minutes. If for 5 minutes, you have patience 10, 15, 15. Usually if you do the 5, 10, 15 long enough, you begin to see. You work it out. So, here's the kash. So there are shidduchim, let's say, that start, fall apart, let's say, and then the shidduch gets back together again. So suppose you have a shidduch, it's under negotiations, it does not work, and finally they get together, and it works. Okay? That's a misunderstandings by the dates. So, when do you make the anniversary? In the original Shatchanis, or when it finally worked? He says, you have Shavuos. Hashem gave the Torah. It was a big wedding. But things went very sour, Shalom Bayis-wise, right afterwards. He had the Chet Hegel. And when did Hashem come back down to embrace Klal Yisrael, so to speak? Yom Kippur. That was the Luchas Shniyos. So when should Shavuos be? Shavuos should be Yom Kippur. So why is Shavuos? That marriage didn't last. That was a disaster. That right afterwards, things went very bad. It should be on Yom Kippur. The one Torah says, when are we going to eat the cheese blintzes, right? Maybe Erev Yom Kippur. I don't know. So why Taka is Shavuos and not Yom Kippur, if Yom Kippur is when things were solidified? Yom Kippur is when things settled down. I've said the story many times. There was a Bacher in Panovich who was a very good Bacher, and he was getting on in life, and he was not getting married. He was not getting married. And Rav Shach, Zechar Lebracha, called him in and said, "What's your problem?" And he said that the Shalom Bayis in his house was very rocky, and he's scared of marriage. So Rav Shach told him that he should get married. He said, "Does the Rosh Hashiva promise me that everything is going to be, we'll never have any fights, never have any disagreements, and there won't be any ups and downs?" He said, "I promise you that you will have fights, and I promise you will have disagreements, and I promise you that there will be ups and downs. But I promise you that if you're going to want to work it out, you have a bracha to work it out." That's what I'm telling you. And he brought him a thing of wine, and they drank l'chaim, and he told him afterwards that we're going to use this wine for the chuppah, for the wine by the chuppah, and kachab. The Gemara says that in Masechta Saita, that Miriam went to her father, and she spoke very boldly to him. She said, "You know something? You are worse than Paroi." She says, "Not be a nice thing to say to your father. Especially if your father is one of the 4 people that died, the Etyesh al Nachash only died because of the Chet Eitzadas. It didn't even have sin, right? Who were the 4 people that died? Gemara says with no sin whatsoever. One was Amram, the other was, anyone? Binyamin. Right, Binyamin, Yishai, and Kloev, son of David, right? I've mentioned this many times. The Chassam Sofer says, so how come we don't say Elikei Amram, Elikei Yishai? Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, David, none of them ever made it to the list. How come we don't say Elikei? And the answer is, Rabbi Sai, because it says the Chassam Sofer, if you want to get into the mud and help people, and be Madrach Klal Yisrael, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to die without a chet. And Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, and David could have lived secluded lives. He also would have been on the list of people that died without chet. Not that it's not a tall order to die without chet, even if you're alone. But they were determined, even a hermit on an island, there's plenty of Yetzaras there. But Lamaisa, it's possible. If you deal with people, it is impossible. I think they say from the Potatoe Rav, one of the reasons Rosh Hashivas have to go around to collect money, because it's almost impossible. You never killed anyone b'shogeg, and you have to go into Gulfs. That's the Potatoe Rav said. Meaning it's Behar. Unless, Rabbi Sol Salanter said a Rav that they don't want to throw out is not a Rav. The Rav that they do throw out, he said, is not a mensch. But if you're going to make mistakes if you're dealing with people, and if you want to correct problems, you're going to make mistakes. And the Avos, according relative to their level, made mistakes. For us, it wouldn't have been an Aveir. For them, it wasn't an Aveir. Zok some cipher, but in the bottom line is, who does Hashem love more? The people that are willing to take the chances and make mistakes, or the people that don't? Because who are the Avos? So she says to Amram, "You're worse than Parai. Parai was only geyser on males. You were geyser on the kevas." She goes on to say, you are a tzaddik. Pari makes a gzeira, says it's going to stick. But you're a tzaddik. What a tzaddik says works. So your gzeira that you divorced my mother, and as a result all the men divorced their women, separated themselves from the women because they said they had no point, what's the point of having children, but Pari to toss them into the water. So you are worse than she. So the Gemara says that Amram went, you know what it means in order to have to die without chait. That means you have to take musar from your daughter, even when she calls you Pari. He took back Yocheved. He took her back at the young age of 130. And Gemara says, Taka, she was a nesh, she looked very young. But the Gemara says, Heshiviu bi apirion. What is apirion? It used to be a hole, right? Apirion? Manor somewhere? A long time ago. And we don't want to reveal your age, so no one tell me who knows where it was. But apirion means a real wedding. So normally a second wedding is a little bit played down. The frat, someone who's a machzor, Gerishosai, it's played down a little bit. I think their halach is you're not doing sphere. I'm not sure. It's less of a. So, and here, no. Amram made a point of taking back Yocheved, and this was the first wedding, the regular, I don't know what there was, but imagine the photographers and everything right from the beginning. This is the way it is. Why? Because Amram understood. Why did he go through this matzav, this loss, can't say loss of emunah, but why this feeling of there's no point in going on if Hashem is going to do this and kill the babies? Taking the musar from his daughter and then going back, he understood that Klal Yisrael is going to go through this matzav in the course of Galus. We're going to wonder, we're so persecuted, what's the point of going on? People in their personal lives may say, there's so much danger out there, so many problems, what's the point of going on and having children? And you need someone to say, hey, there's Rabbi Shalom in the world, you do what you have to, he'll do what he has to do. So he took her back via Pirion, and the Gemara says, Pirion, says Rashi, as if it was the first wedding. In other words, don't think for 1 minute that when he married Yocheved the first time that something changed. He was Maimin Ba'ashgacha Pratis, that when he first married Yocheved, they had to go through this process. They had to go through the process of breaking up because there was a sense of yish and working your way back. This was all part of the original plan. So you know why Shavuos is Shavuos and not Yom Kippur? Because part of the original plan was there should be a Chet HaEgel. The Gemara says, Kol Oimer the Yisrael Chet Ein Elatayah was Lahavis Tshuva L'Rabbi. And that was to teach us that is the order of this world. We all have hopes, we all have plans for ourselves, we have relationships, and there's going to come to a point where it looks so sour we are frightened. Or we have no will to want to go on. And what frightens us is that the world is a free-for-all. And we have to work our way back to believe in Hashgacha. And to say, when I first met Rabbi Mekadesh, Hashem knew this. Hashem knew the whole story through and through. Nothing new took place. This was part of the plan. So the reason Shavuos is not Yom Kippur, because the process of Chet HaEgel and the healing after Chet HaEgel was part of Hashem's plan in the original marriage. And the same is true in our attitude in life when things go sour around us. So when we're young, we do foolish things. Well, they say if you don't do foolish things when you're young, what are you going to laugh about when you get older? So why does everyone have to be born youthful and foolish? I'll tell you, as Chatoyani Maskir, when I once met a perspective, when I was a bacher, attempting to become an ex-bacher, and I met someone who came to like look me over, so to speak. And he asked me, so what do you plan on being when you grow up? So I told him a fireman. That's usually what kids say when you ask them that question, what are you planning when you grow up? He was a little taken aback. He gave it to the Schachter. Schachter called me up, gave me over the head. Are you out of your mind? What was that supposed to mean? I said, he asked a foolish question, he got a foolish answer. Now, would I do that today? No. But you know, there's a reason that Hashem makes 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old boys, people, chasanim. Obviously, this is part of our naivete, what's the right word? Is part of the process. It's part of the process. You know, the Avnei Nezer, my father used to tell me the story, the Avnei Nezer was almost the son-in-law by the Divrei Chaim. He was a Pilasha, very sharp. So the Heilige Divrei Chaim said to him, okay, you fahered him. He said, he asked him Pshat and Rashi. He said, I'm going to the mikveh, when I come back, tell me Pshat, Shver, Rashi, and Zvachim. So he says, I'll tell you right away Pshat. I'll tell you what's bothering me, I'll tell you the answer. So the Divrei Chaim asked him a different Rashi. He says, okay, so figure out this Rashi and come back. So he also answered him right away. And then the Avnei Nezer said to the Heilige Divrei Chaim, he said to him, now let me ask you Pshat in this Taisus. I'll go to the mikveh, let's see what you say when you come back. So he said, well, it doesn't work that way, it goes the other way. So he says, listen, why does it go the other way? Just like there's a chiyuv to marry off your daughter to a Talmid Chacham, there's a chiyuv to marry a bas Talmid Chacham. So Elamai, why doesn't the son-in-law faher the father-in-law? Because he's on the chazakah. He said, you already asked me 2 Rashis, you're about to ask me a third. Apparently chazakas don't mean anything to you. So if it doesn't mean anything to you, it doesn't mean anything to me. So I have to ask you where we're going. So the Rechaim told him, you're very smart, but too smart for me. You know? Sent him to Kask, he said. So the Rebbeinu Shem makes us, you know, when we're young, we're too smart for ourselves. When we're young, we do ridiculous things. It's just a bacherish kind of, bacherish kind of mentality. I remember I still remember this day. I was in camp once. The 3 Bachrim are there. You going to New York? No. I'm going up to Hunters. Okay, well, come along. You just said you're going to New York. Well, we'll get a ride from there. Why? You know, a certain Bacherish mentality. You live a different kind of life. Not that Bachrim shouldn't be guided. But apparently the Rebbeinu Shem wanted us to grow into life this way. That we have to go through a process. The Chidah says in the beginning of the Sefer Pesach Inayim, Mesechta Saita, that very often we find Shana Rishayna between a couple, is Raki. I heard this a lot of advice about Shana Rishayna. After Shana Rishayna, after the first year, things settle down. The Chidah says Pshat is like this. That when the Neshama comes down from Shemayim, the Gilgal, often you bring down your mate with you. And the mate is not very happy that she or he has to come down just because you messed up. So after that subconsciously is like, oh, come on, because I have to marry you again, you have to come down. So after the first year, things settle down. And he says that often that's what it means. But there's a process. To get to maturity, you have to go through a process. And that's the ups and downs of youth. But they say that old man walked in, he wanted to apply to the army because he heard there's good benefits. 85-year-old Yidler walks into the recruiting station. He says, I want to be a Navy SEAL. He says, we don't take people like your age. He says, you don't need generals? You know, why can't you take me? You have generals, right? It doesn't work that way. You have to go through a process. So yes, Chazal say binyan na'arim stira, that the building of young ones is taking things apart, and stira is a kain and binyan, and the taking apart of old ones is a binyan. But that is a process in order to get to the eights of the zekanim. When you're young, listen to the advice of the old ones. You know, if you're smart, you do. But most people learn through mistakes. And that is because the entire life works that way. And one of the things that unravels us when we face difficult situations, something happened that never happened before. If we're minding B'yamunah Shalema, this is part of the DNA. It's all part of the process, all part of the script. That we can deal with it. It's not a lack of hashgacha. It's hashgacha exposing us to different nisyanis, where through that we reach our goal. You settle me in darkness. That's Talmud Bavli. Says Reb Tzaddik, Roiv Yegia to make up the Roiv Kas. There's a major difference in the first Luchais and the second Luchais. The first Luchais, you looked at it, you saw Ruach HaKodesh, you saw Aragonis, you saw the entire world, you saw where you came from, you saw where your Neshama came from, you saw everything. Everything was there. Yisrael, you didn't only needed the Chemish Chem Sheitayra, they only needed Sefer Yeshua, Chemish Chem Sheitayra and Sefer Yeshua, they saw everything right there and then. Right? He said it all from the Heilige Original. He said the entire Torah is in Chumash Bereshis, Parashas Bereshis. The entire Parashas Bereshis is in the first Parasha of Bereshis. The entire first Parasha of Bereshis is in the word Bereshis. And the entire word Bereshis is in the Beis. And the entire Beis is in the little dot in the Beis. He says in the Sefer Torah, you don't even see the dot, because the secret is so great, you don't even see it in the Sefer Torah. So in the first luchos, they saw everything. But the world was never intended to be that way. In our subconscious, there is an amunah that in the Torah there's the Or Haganis. But this was all part of the plan. The second luchos is Yegiya. The second luchos is tough. The second luchos is Shar Shanagach Asapara, as a difficult tzais, or a difficult piece of Mishnah Brura, or even a Daf Yomi if you're tired and you're running off, or even 15 minutes in the moonlight. The second luchos requires Mesiras Nefesh. Why is Rus? Why do we read Rus Shua, says Rav Tzaddik? It's because of what she went through. She went through the ultimate bizyinus. You cannot imagine anything going more sour than the story of Elimelech and how his son's married and everything. And that's part of the Ashgacha. And all the players are queens. And Malchus Beis David comes from this. It's all part of the Ravina Shlem's plan. So Al Timer, don't say, says the Chidush Yarid. L'chasha efna eshna, when I have time I will learn. Shema loy tipana, maybe you'll never have time. Says the Chidush Yarim, Shema loy tipana. Maybe Hashem wants your Torah when you don't have time. That's your purpose. In the course of our lives, we will go through different fears. We will go through different concerns. We will go through different difficulties. And the Ma'ariv you daven that night, and the Blat Gemara you learned that night, the Mishnah you learned that night, the Magen Avram, the Taz that you learned that night, is unparalleled in the history of the world and will never again be repeated, not in your life, not anyone else, because you're not the same person. Because every single year of our life we go through different nisyanis and different matzavim. So, when you're a little kid, kids always want to be older. Right? You ask a 4-year-old, how old are you? 4 3/4. 4, he can't wait to 5. Right? Then it gets to a certain age, you want to be younger. People stay 29 many years, you know what I mean? So somebody once asked, where's the perfect age? When you're little, you want to be older. When you're older, you want to be young. Where is the perfect age? Where does the needle stop? It doesn't. It doesn't. There is no perfect age. You'll never have it exactly the way you want. You'll always want to be either older or younger. And that's the point. Don't wait for the perfect age. Do what you have to do now. These are my nisyanis. These are the things I'm scared about. Fine. Life goes on. I'm not in denial, but I'm not going to fall under, I'm not going to really believe that I'm not in the hands of Ashgacha. I remember when I first started teaching 12th grade. So, the last, they get these half-price Metro cards. So they're finishing the semester, the last man. They come out with their half-price message. So one kid says, the next time I get this, I'm going to be 65 years old. Like, what happens now between my one half-price Metro card, I said in the middle you're going to pay full price, In the middle it's taka different. Who am I now? I love maps. I really like maps. I like to figure out where I'm going on maps. But I still use a GPS. If somebody came to me and said, why do you have a GPS if you like maps? I said, I use the GPS. It should tell me where I am now. Okay? I don't need to tell me where to go, because it doesn't know where to go always. It's going to send me down 13th Avenue, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, Friday afternoon, at Bar Park, behind 3,000 school buses, because on the map, he doesn't know that it's Kedai to go 10 blocks out of the way. But I want to know where I am. There was a horrible, horrible story last week, which was widely reported, that some radical, out of their mind, I'll stop right here, they hacked into the AP news site, Associated Press, which was one of the most distinguished news, and they posted a story that there was a terrible terrorist bombing in Washington and so on. And it took all of 3 minutes for the AP to clear it up, that no such thing happened. And Hashem should have, no such thing should ever happen. God should help, everyone should be protected. But for 3 minutes, people believed it. And in that 3 minutes, the stock market fell 150 points. Okay? In those 3 minutes. Listen to this. The NASDAQ, the S&P, the Dow, combined with the Amex, the New York Stock Exchange, I have no clue what I'm talking about, I'm just reading over here, lost in those 3 minutes $186 billion.
Wow.
That's billion. Yehim and Asha, billion. Like as in Burkes, base, with a base. As in the Bundlach, Barsh, billion. 3 minutes. In 3 minutes. I was thinking to myself,
what caused this loss? It was in 3 minutes. What happened?
I was thinking I don't have news on my cell phone, so I don't know.
Oh well.
But I was thinking to myself, how many times does the Yetzer Hara hack into our lives and we're overwhelmed with this terrible pachad? We're overwhelmed with this unbelievable fear. And before we have a chance to get into our bearings, wait a second, there's a Rabbi Shalom on the world. My obituary has already been written, so to speak. The story is there. Let me just enjoy it. Before we get our bearings, what do we lose if we say the wrong thing to our spouses or we react the wrong way in that moment? If you don't wait out that moment of pachad. And really, that is the crown of Nasav and Ishma. The crown of Nasav and Ishma is to be able to go on and do, even though right now I don't understand what's happening. Even though right now I have no clue what is happening, but Nasa, I want to do, the nishma, and I want to hear later. Right now I am doing, right now I am hearing. Rabbi Bornstein, told me, went to the Menachem Ovel, told me an unbelievable story about his father. So I remember exact details, but his father was a young boy and was walking with his brother in the Nazis had just began to make their waves in Poland, and they were stopped by a bunch of browncoats, and they were beaten to the pulp. And the brother was so traumatized by this that he didn't want his younger brother to be beaten again, so he cut off his payas. Cut off the younger brother's payas to make sure no one should identify him as a yid. Kid comes into Cheder, and whoever the Malamed was then, Rugeschnitten the payas! You cut off your payas, whack! Out of here! Never ever come back. And he could not, no way that he could answer, explain it, he's out of it. So you have to realize in those times, the communists, the Bundists, there were plenty of anti-frum people were jumping at this story and making headlines of this, and how no one understands the pain of, and they went to the mother, sent him to one of our schools, and the mother said, happened, it happened. Okay? I'm not sending him to your schools. My kid is going to be a Shomer Shabbos. Like that's it. If I am angry at someone who represents God, doesn't mean I'm angry at God. That means the representative has the problem. And the mother refused to hear. They wouldn't take the kid back in yeshiva, but the mother refused to send the kid anywhere else. And at the end, there was a Schneider in town, a tailor, who said, "I'll take the kid in. I'll teach him, do tailoring, and in the middle, I'll learn with him a Mishnah or two." And she gave over the child to be an apprentice. He was from the last surviving members in the Lodz ghetto. And that was because there was a Nazi officer who came in one day and realized while everyone else was starving, he had probably confiscated some knishes and consumed them. And when his pants split, he said he desperately needs a tailor for the sake of the honor of the Third Reich. And when this boy came forward, he took him as his personal tailor. Wow. And he was from the last surviving members of the Lodz ghetto. Story is not over. He said as they were being pushed into the train when the Lodz ghetto was liquidated, so there was a kind of a selection before the train. And they decided he was too short and too thin to live. So they sent him off to the trucks to be shot. Two Chassidish Yidden saw him, so they grabbed him and put him into their coats. As they were pushing him onto the train, so the Nazis realized this, they said, throw him into the train, we'll see how long he survives. And we'll see how long he survives. He comes to Treblinka, wherever it was. He says they send him again. He's sent to the left into the gas chamber. Gas chamber doesn't turn on. Malfunction. They put them into a pen to wait out the repair of the gas chamber. No food, no water. They come out, they're about to put them in a second time, and another Nazi comes by and needs a tailor. Survives the war, 3 beautiful children, grandchildren, families, sends mishpachas v'Yisrael, They said, let's see how long he survives. It's not good to be Hashem's accountant. Go figure it out. He survived because he was a tailor. A lot of tailors died. And Hashem has many ways to save people. Maybe he survived because there was a mother that said, the world crashed in on me, but guess what? Nasa v'nishma. I will continue to do mine. It's not going to be an excuse in Shemayim that I left Yiddishkeit because so-and-so turned me off and Yiddishkeit so bad and that person was that. What is so-and-so? Are you dealing with so-and-so? You're dealing with the Rebbeinu Shalom, whether you're right or whether you're wrong. So again, this story in the news about a fish that wound up in a fishing boat that came from the tsunami. 2 years it was floating aimlessly over the Pacific Ocean, arrived on the coast of Washington. They take this boat, whatever was left of it, it even had the name of a certain university on it, belonged to a university, and inside the boat, in one of the compartments, there's a fish swimming around, and the fish experts, the fishologists, or whatever they're called, they, I'll never forget, I remember I was in Rebelsky Shir, it was on Gesundenstark, many, many years ago. And somebody asked him about carpfish. They said carp doesn't have scales. So he said he assumes they have when they're little and they fall off. How do you know? So there was no Googling in those days. He calls here, calls there. Do carpfish have scales when they're born? I think so. I guess so. Did anyone check this out? So he wound up going from place to place till he got through to tried the aquarium. The aquarium said, well, we think so. We're not sure. Got to look it up. Called the Smithsonian in Washington. They called it this aquarium, this aquarium. Finally, they got through to one of the biggest professors on fish. He said, what do you want to know? I want to know if carpfish are born with scales. He goes, why don't you call a kosher fish store? They'll know. He said, they do have scales when they're born. Okay, so this fish, okay, they determined never existed in North America. And there's no shot that this fish came from Japan. Kind of a zebrafish. So it survived the whole thing. They're not even letting it back into the regular water because they're scared because this fish was never here, it'll destroy the whole ecological cycle and so on. So they're keeping it in an aquarium someplace in Washington. Well, let's stop here a second. The tsunami was a terrible, terrible human tragedy beyond our imagination. And this boat was swept away. Its fishermen probably are no longer on this island. And it is left aimlessly to float across the Pacific Ocean for 2 years. And the fish is found in a compartment. What did it live on? One of the fishermen had a sandwich there. And he was eating slowly, one crumb at a time. And the fish survived. So do you get this? That when it's Bashert and Hashemayim to survive, you survive. The Noshim Tzidkaniyos in Mitzrayim went to their husbands and said, we got to build Klal Yisrael. They said, no, we can't. We can't. They're killing our kids. We can't. We're finished. We're doomed. We're emotionally wrecked. We're physically destroyed. So they went, they brought buckets of water, and inside the water, Nizdamin Lehem Dogim Ketan, little fish appear. Right? It was Kodesh Baruch Hu showing us. You're going to worry a hin, worry a hair. The bottom line is, what the Rebbeinu Shem wants to happen is what's going to happen. It says, Ishimai v'aviv tiro, you got to fear your father and mother. One of the things of fearing your father and mother is, you don't sit in your father's place or your mother's place. So the Zohar says, Ishimai v'aviv tiro, refers to the Shechina Akdash. That Ima is the Shechina, Aviv is different ways that Kodesh Baruch Hu reveals himself to us. So the Sfas Emes says, what does Lo Yeshev B'Mekayim mean? It means, you don't decide who's going to live and die. Don't sit in the Rebbeinu Shem's seat. Because ultimately he makes the decision. Don't write yourself off. Don't write somebody else off. Lo Yeshev B'Mekayim. Don't sit in Hashem's seat. I'm sure you've heard over the years unbelievable stories in Miron, how people had Moisim and Yeshuas. And it's true. Chas v'shal. Of course it's true. But I want to tell you one sad story that happened in Miron, I think about 100 years ago. The people were standing on top of a gate, stopping on the roof, and the gate gave way, and many people fell over, and I think that there were 8 people that died, and many others were wounded. It was under the Turkish rule, and there was no Hatzalah and Zaka, and didn't exist. Even they say that the Turkish police did their best. Under the moment, they had to carry people on boards, the tzvas, walked hours and hours to get to the closest hospital. There is a legend that right before this accident, this guy showed up. He was wearing a red turban, big white beard, smiling, and he was like getting people dancing with them. Some people was, Yid wants to dance, let's dance. Some were like, stay away from me. Anyone that danced with that person wasn't killed. That's the legend. Was that Reb Shimon? Was that whatever that was? You know something? There's a time in our life that Rebbeinu Shem wants us to dance. I'm not in the mood of dancing. Not with my kids, not Friday night by the table, not after what I'm scared of. But it's that dance that's going to save your life. There's Nasa and Nishma. Sometimes there's no way in the world Hashem could go to the Nishma before the Nasa. We have too limited intellectual abilities. Our tunnel vision is too narrow to get it. But Nasa, what we can do that no Malach in the world can do is we can do the Nasa before the Nishma. It says on Shabbos, Hashem gives back the crowns of Nasa and Nishma. Because a person has Mesiras Nefesh on Shabbos to be happy, that's unbelievable. There's a Peladik Arvei Nachal in Parashas Baloisra. He says, the Shema gets up there in Shemayim, Hashem strikes a deal with him. Plea bargain. I don't care what a day you did. All the Gehenim coming back down to this world, all the Tzaras, Michael, on one condition. What's the condition? Great deal. What? You have to be Mavater, you have to give away the reward for one mitzvah saseh that you did. I don't care what Averis you were over. If you're willing to give away the reward for one mitzvah saseh, carte blanche, easy pass. And no Neshama ever took the deal. Because once you see what the reward is for one mitzvah saseh, you're not going to give it away. So the Gra says that when you learn Torah, every word of Torah is a mitzvah saseh. Chavetz Chaim says that the person can speak 200 words a minute. That's 1,000 words in 5 minutes. That's a lot of mitzvah sasehs. Think about this. You know how there's doubles and triples? Ben Ish Chaim makes a cheshbon on Shabbos. Every word of Torah that you learn, you get 10 times the amount of schar. And it says, Pam achas b'tzar, mimei pam shaloi b'tzar. When you're not in the mood of learning or something is weighing down on you and you say, I'm going to do it anyway, that's 100 times shaloi b'tzar. So imagine if on Shabbos you learned when you're not in the mood of learning. You imagine how this multiplies? When they say Bill Gates drops $100, it's not going to die for him to pick it up because he makes more money sitting on the computer. because he has so much commission. I mean, this is what we're talking about, these kind of numbers here in terms of mitzvahs asais. I once said a very good vart. Your Eltazeda, he never had the enjoyment of popping a kugel into a microwave and having it a second later. But he had one thing that we didn't have, the enjoyment of smelling the cooking potatoes for 2 hours. That we don't have. Very instant world. In an instant world, we don't have the simcha. We don't have where we should be. As Yaakov Avinu waited for Rachel, so it says it was kiyamim achadim. It was like single days, even though it was 7 years, because he loved her so much. When you want something, it takes very long. Ask any kid, how long is recess? 2 seconds. Right, how long is shir? Oh. Ready? Right? What did the guy say? If you have the opportunity of speaking to people, sometimes you watch an olam. You know? I always say, I don't mind if a guy keeps looking at his watch 5 minutes into my speech, but when he starts shaking it to see what is with this thing, then you know you're in trouble. So what I mean was Giyam Machad, it was like single days. So right from my Meshgiach was like, that's the difference in a ruchnius dekana and a gashmius dekana. A physical hana, the more you want it, the longer it takes. It's never as good as what you anticipated, right? The cereal in the box is never as good as the picture of the cereal outside of the box. I think that's why you have kids staring, right? Ever notice why kids stare at the picture of the cereal when they eat the thing, right? Like, you try to imagine this is what it is, but it doesn't look that good. It doesn't look that good. You don't see the worms and the strawberries. Everything is like very planted there. When it comes to a ruchnius dekana, right, building your sukkah, there's tremendous joy. When it comes to ruchnius, because Yaakov's ahava was one of ruchnius, of building Klal Yisrael, it was kiyamim achad. So Shemitah, you know what Shemitah means? Lay off. Lay off. Stop trying to figure things out. What's going to go wrong and what's going to go right, because you don't know what's going to go wrong and you don't know what's going to go right. You do not know. There's a din of Shulchan Aruch of ani hamahapach b'charad. That means literally it means if an ani is trying to get a hold of a hot cookie, he's trying to juggle it because he can't hold it, it's too hot, you'll snatch it away from him. But it means he's trying to engage in a business deal and he's struggling and you move in and buy him out. Don't do that. Don't do that. I just saw a Shiloh, he brings the Sefer Behar. There's a guy at a bus going to Miron, advertised it all over the place. That was before thousands of buses. Ruvain's bus company, enter at your own risk. And he says 7 o'clock and he took, he advertised and people lined up and along came Shimon with his bus. He said, come on guys, get in. And Reuven shows up at the bus, there's no one there. He finds out what Shimon did there. He went to take Shimon to the Talmud. The din of ani amahapach b'charara. He had no right to do it. He had no right to do it. There's a din of ani amahapach b'charara. I think we do it to ourselves. We do it to ourselves. There are things that may fall into place, whether it's shidduchim, whether it's our personal security, whether it's our life, whether it's our health. There are times you have to wait for things to fall into place. But we don't have the ability, because it's a microwave generation, we don't have the ability to let the potatoes cook. And we grab it away from ourselves. In Bechukotai telechu, it gives us the koyach to move on. Limud Torah gives us the simchas achayim to move on. Says the Orachayim HaKadosh, Torah is something no one can take away from you. Doesn't make a difference what you're but no one can take it away from you. It gives us the koyach to move on. That's the telechu. So the Gross says you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? You wash your hands. Same way you wash your hands. So why do you wash your hands? Wash your head. Isn't your head more important than your hands? So Zok the Gra, no, because you know what your hands represent? Your hands represent koichi v'oitzim yadim. I got it. If I do things right, things will work my way. If I push the right guy out of me, I'll be okay. And if I don't, I'm in trouble. The first thing you do is you wash your hands. And that means 2 things. A, to believe you have the courage to help yourself, because a person says, whatever I do, I'm in trouble anyway. Look what happened to him. Look what happened to him. Oh, it's so terrible. I give up. No, you have the courage to help yourself. That's why you have to wash your hands first thing in the morning. And by the same token, don't believe that it's in your hands. Don't believe that you have the power to protect yourself. Gemara says, "B'shasha tikkun shloim me'erev netilas yadayim." A baskar rang out. Right? How great Shlomo Melech is. What's the similarity between erev and netilas yadayim? So the Katzka says you got to learn how to be mixed with everybody and still stay tahar. But both represent 2 opposing mahalchim in life. What's an erev? An erev gives me an extension. I can carry where I couldn't carry before. I can walk where I couldn't walk before. But it also reminds me of my restriction. That even with the erev, there's a limit to how far I can go. And that's netilas yadayim. Listen, Rabbi Shalom, I'm going to do my best. But ultimately, my life is in your hands. I have no right to give up, and I have no right to assume everything is mine. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah says at the end of Uktzim, Aseh HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahancha l'chol tzaddik, Hashem is going to bequeath to every tzaddik. Every tzaddik is going to inherit 310 ilamas, 310 worlds. Never mind Manhattan buildings and never mind apartment buildings in Manhattan. 310 worlds. Says the Gemara, what's the breakup of the 310? 10 are for your mitzvahs aseh, And 300 are for the various different levels in your life where you fought off things that were bothering you. For the licenses. There's no two people that sit down to learn with the same nisyanis, with the same difficulties. No two people that kriya shema lamita or smile and you say good morning or good night to your spouse when you're not in the mood. It's never the same nisyan. For that, there's 300 worlds. You know, there's a din of Shulchan Aruch, if you're davening and your mind begins to wander, it says you should look out at the sky. Look at the blue sky. That's a simon for Yirah Shemai. Mishnah Berurah brings it. Simon Tzaddik. So he brings the Sefer Behar a story that this guy is davening and he wants more kavanah. Because he feels so close to Hashem. He walks over to the window and looks up at the sky. And from the corner of his eye, he notices they're about to give his car a ticket. So he races out. And he goes, no. So there was a whole to-do there with this fellow over here. Right, you know? He's very holy until, like that famous story that, the Russian judge says, if you had an apartment house, what would you do with it? I'd give it to Mother Russia. If you had an ocean liner, I'd give it to Mother Russia. Socks? No way. You give away ocean liners, you give away apartment house, you won't give away socks. He goes, Chocham, I have a pair of socks. That's the difference. So he went, no, there was a whole tumble about this guy. So they told him, what's the matter with you? He says, listen, I was about to get a ticket. I feel a melech Yisrael, Shel b'shleima, layatzik, even of a king. As long as it's not sekonas afoshin, that's supposed to stop. So he timed that I wasn't mafsik. I said, no. I never said, don't give me the ticket. I just said, right? I didn't do that. So they said, he asked Rabbi Yashiv. Rabbi Yashiv said, this is a typical example of Dvar Hashem Baza. As a siyuvi daita. How's about Nasav and Ishma? How's about, whoa. Forget the car. Get the ticket. He's standing before the Melech. He's standing before Hashem. I got to tell you, I once saw, it's one of the most sickest sights I ever saw. I saw a guy running Shabbos morning in his talus, with an Torah, screaming. Someone was killed, someone was kidnapped. What? A guy passed by his car and made a dent in the fender. He's running after him. Shabbos morning, you're running after him? Are you out of your mind? Well, something is majorly wrong. Majorly. Inability. I tell you, the previous generation had a kayach. Rabbi Aaron was extremely, when it was a young man, as well as he was older, but he was extremely makbid on Shmir Sanayim to the greatest degree. And when he went to yeshiva in Klesk, he never walked through the main street. He had a whole system. He climbed over fences. I'm sure he had permission to get to yeshiva. So the Bachrim followed him once. And once the Bachrim stopped, they said there was a mad dog over there. They said, we're not going. He said, hold on to me, nothing's going to happen to you. The previous generation had a certain Mesiras Nefesh. They were willing to give away their socks. Tickets didn't get in the way. I got to tell you, my father, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, he went to Shanghai. He grew up in Lemberg. He wanted to go learn in the Litvish yeshivas. That was like, I told you now, I want to go learn on Mars. But he had a drive. He wanted to do it. And his whole life, he had tremendous drive to do things that nobody else wanted to do. There was a fellow in Shanghai who was crying that his daughter is totally off. He said, no one's doing anything. He said, she's totally anti-Chredi. He says, I'll come to your house, try to learn with her. She said, absolutely not. He said, well, I need someone to teach me Hebrew because he wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. He says, you need someone to teach you Hebrew. She wanted to go off to some kibbutz someplace. She said, I'll teach you Hebrew and you teach me English. My father said he came with a chumash. What's that chumash? I got to teach you Hebrew. He started Bereshis Bara Lakim. Once he started Bereshis Bara Lakim, she said, who made the world? It was all over. That had a certain guts. I want to tell you something. My father used to daven very slowly, say out every word. Almost every single day you could write a whole siddur by clearly hearing the pronunciation of every single word. And I remember he would start davening, we were on a subway, and he would start davening because he saw it's for shkia or whatever. And our stop came, door opened, door closed, he's davening. Like a little kid, Train comes to the last stop, they're asking everyone to go off the train. I realize the train's going to the garage. And nothing doing. Not in the spell. They didn't have an aspilus. They had a certain drive. When he was, he never burnt himself very badly. He couldn't control the hot water. He was older, he had Parkinson's. He went to the hospital, Friday night he went to the hospital to burn unit. It was a very traumatic experience. And I'm there, I don't know where to turn to. We're waiting for the doctor, waiting for this big burn doctor. He had burns all over. And I started davening Mara. The doctor shows up. I'm like, okay, what's the problem? Right away I started answering him. I don't know. I was allowed to talk out of the middle of Berchus Kriyashma. If they Hayurim, they are covered, it was a Kodesh Nefesh. It's like, the truth is, it wasn't even a halachic chesed. It was just like, I lost myself. I was like, And he goes over to my father, and he's on such Yisurim, you can't imagine. He was also davening Mara. He says to him, how did this happen, sir? He has to know. I said, how did it happen? I'm not talking out of him. I never talked out of Mara for the last 7 years. I'm not doing it now. He comes back 10 minutes later disgusted. He says to him, okay. He tells me, are you allergic to this? Are you allergic to that? He goes, you're Jewish? Yeah. I don't want you to write for Shabbos. Ah! Slams the clipboard down, storms. I don't know what the halach is. He's like, looks at me like, what is your problem? No, I'm not in the spoil from anybody. The previous generation, they had a koyach. You know, we may have more flowers. We may have more ocean liners that we're giving away. They have bigger svarim chunks today, a lot more svarim. Are we willing to give away our sacks for the Rabbi Shalom? For the Ktuka Shel Halacha? Where are we? Where are we? I want to conclude with a story. You know, say the Rebbe of Melech, the Rebbe of Zisha used to go into Gullus. They wandered from place to place and place to place. And the minig was that their father used to come to them from the other mamas and tell them where to go Shabbos. So they came to a certain town. So the father said, Zisha, you go to this guy, a schlepper, somewhere on the other end of the city. And Mailach, you go to the roof. So the brothers part, and Mailach goes to the roof, the rabbi. And Zisha goes to this house, knocks on the door. The lady says, can I help you? He says, can I stay here for Shabbos? She goes, you can stay, but we don't have any food for ourselves. Like, why would you want to stay here for? She goes, if you don't mind, okay, wait for my husband. Husband comes back from the field 2 minutes before Shabbos, holding his rake, holding his, thing. Yeah, wearing his overalls. It's 2 minutes before Shabbos. Yeah, no, I stay to you for Shabbos? Yeah, I don't have much to give you. You want to stay? Stay. He sits down. Says, Friday night, once they light the lech, boom, then the malachim will come crowd the place. So he lights the lech, and door opens up. Nothing. They're sitting there. He tells them, listen, tomorrow morning, okay, we've got a real fast davening, 25 minutes, it's all over. Daven with me, please. I'm not going to wait for you if you go down in a regular shul. Tomorrow morning, boom, 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 shachanat, say Torah, backwards, Muslim. He's sitting there, schmoozing, he sings some zneras. The wires went wrong. Father, you sure you got the right person? Send me to the right person. So Shalashudas, he goes back to the house. They're not around. The husband's not around. The wife's not around. He asks the kids, where are they? Oh, these Shalashudas, they go up with their friends to the attic. He has this sneaky feeling. So he runs to the attic. He's how do you get to the attic? He says there's a ladder on the outside. He runs outside. He sees the ladder is not there. So he climbs up, looks in, and boom, there are the 36 hidden tzaddikim of the generation. And they're standing there, and he sees a light, and they let the Rebbe of Zisha in, but they say on the condition you can never reveal what you saw here. Fine. He comes back, so Mailach says, had a nice Shabbos by the Rav. How was your Shabbos? Zisha, how was your Shabbos? Can't say. Zisha, come on, I went to the Rav. You went to your father. What was the story there? And finally his brother said, all our lives, we risk our lives, we shared everything. So he spills the beans, he tells them about the 36 hidden tzaddikim. Says on the way back, they're sleeping in the inn, they're sleeping on the floor, they don't have money to pay. In comes this pirates, all dressed up. Says, this guy's sleeping on the floor, take him into my room. Well, they go into his room, fine. And all of a sudden he wakes up in the middle of the night and says, my watch is gone! Thieves! And the Rebbe of Melch, Rebbe of Zisha, in trouble. The guys come in and they're arrested and they're tied and they don't know what's going to happen to them. And they're given over to a certain judge and he's about to ban them to I don't know where, to Siberia for the next 85 years. And finally he calls them in and the judge kind of reveals his mask. And the pirates comes by and goes, where's some of those 36 tzaddikim? We told you not to tell. Okay? Next time we tell you not to tell, don't tell. So, this is not your typical mice you're going to hear in Panovich, you know what I mean? In one of, but, it's like real Chassidish mice. But like everything else, look a little deeper. Why did the Rebbe Zisha's father have to send him to the house there? Because I think in each one of us, in our lives, we think my life, it's just a regular Shabbos. I'm sitting by the Suda. I can't get it going. I can't get a nishmas going. I can't get anything going. You keep going. You keep going. And you're going to find those 36 hidden tzaddikim. Because there's a little bit of a hidden tzaddik within all of us. We try to exploit that hidden tzaddik. We pay a price for it. But trust me, there's a little bit of a hidden tzaddik in every single person that is sitting here. Have a wonderful Shabbos.